Check this out. Here's a note I got written here, and it's from a long time ago. It's Genesis, which is the first book in the Bible, chapter 6. Oh man, let me read all of chapter 6. Yeah. All right. You see the advertisements along interstates, the Christian things, God this, God that. And you hear people talk on TV or even in a sermon, and they say that basically man is good. You got to bring out and cultivate the good, right? That's not what God says, all right? Now, when God created man and then woman, there was no sin when that first happened. He created Adam and Eve, and Eve ate the apple first and gave to the man that was with her. Now, they had 2 kids, Cain and Abel. And Cain, for whatever reason, killed Abel. Right? And then Cain was cast out. And the Bible says, now I'm just doing this from memory here, because I want to read this chapter here. It says that when Adam was 130 years old, now 130 years after he was created, okay, it says here that he knew his wife Eve again. In other words, they had sex, right? She got pregnant. And they had another kid. And they named him Seth, right? Now, Adam had a child. And it says it right in the book here. I'll even go to it in a minute, maybe. Now, in the beginning, God said, let's make man in our image. All right? That means no sin and all the attributes of God, all the good stuff, right? That was Adam. Then he did the woman, and then that's when things fell apart, right? When Adam was 130 years old, he had another child, the third one, Seth. But the word says that he had the child after his, meaning Adam's, likeness. He had the child after his likeness. In other words, Seth was born with sin. Okay? Now, what does that mean? It's right here in this particular one here. Let me read it. Chapter 6. Wickedness of man. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that means when there was a whole bunch of folks, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. That's when he put a limit on how long man was going to live. For a long time now, they were living hundreds of years. There were giants in the earth in those days. That's another story about understanding what that meant. And also, after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. A lot of people think that angels were having sex with these women. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts, every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. All of them only had evil in mind. Every single one. Except Noah, of course. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. All right. Let's listen for a second. All these people that teach of all the goodness that's in a man, and all you got to do is bring it out. Now, if you're reading the New Testament, you'll read the teaching there, which comes from God. Says, he tells you to repent. And the only way you can change is by the renewing of your mind. He says you need to be born again. By the renewing of your mind. Let's read it again here. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart, which is where the crap or the good can come from, was only evil continually. All the Democrats are like that. Okay? Now, because there was no good thing, God had to wipe it out. Finally, Noah replenished the earth, and now we got all these people. But what's going on? Evil continually in most thoughts. And that's what comes out all the time. God has to change it again. But he's telling us in the New Testament that we can change while we are alive by the renewing of your mind. And how do you do that? By reading this book. By taking heed thereto, according to his word, understanding what God says, and obeying the commandments. That's how you gain eternal life. It's not saying you're not going to die. It's not saying you're not going to have the pain and all the physical ailments, which I'm experiencing right now, which my wife is experiencing right now. You know something? I don't want to reveal any secrets. My wife talks to Jesus every single day. I hear her doing it. She's just like me. We're sinners. She talks to God every single day. My grandfather was an old guy when he died. He was close to 100. the first thing he did when he woke up in the morning, and my grandmother told me this. Now, she was a Christian lady also. She told me that the first thing he did when he got out of bed was to kneel at the foot of the bed and pray and talk with God. Now, she told me, she says, he doesn't even go pee first. He prays first, and then he goes to the bathroom, right? The last thing he did at night. Now, back in them days, I'm talking the 40s and 50s here, right? Sun up to sundown. They lived on a farm. They had animals. They were up before the sun, and when the sun went down, although there was electricity and stuff, it wasn't long after dark. These guys were in bed, especially in the winter. We lived up north, and it got dark pretty early in the day. They went to bed, because along around 3, 4 o'clock, they're up again, making breakfast and feeding the animals and doing stuff. But I was told by my grandmother that my grandfather would talk with God the last thing he did during the day. Now, I know my grandfather. He was a tough dude, right? And he was not a goody two-shoe type of a person. What he had to do every day was to ask forgiveness for a lot of his stuff. And God blessed him with a long life. I love my grandmom and my grandpa. Now, I know there's 2 grandmoms and grandpops, in a family, but my one grandfather was a mean guy. I don't think he knew God. But his wife, which was my mother's mother, she did know God. She saved my life. I fell out of a barn loft. A barn. B-A-R-N, a barn. I don't really pronounce Oz sometimes, but a barn. I fell from the 3rd story up in the loft, and I landed in the manure pile down below, it was high. This was a big barn. Well, for a little kid, it was a barn. I was only like 5 years old. Right? I fell out of the loft, and I landed on my back in the manure pile. My grandmother was watching. They lived across the country road, was up on a hill, and she was watching me playing up there. She knew I was in there, and I wasn't supposed to be in there. And she came running. Right? And she had to go, I don't know, 400 feet, 500 feet. I don't know how far it was to where I was at. But she knelt down right into all that rotten poop. And she saw me. She said, my face was turning blue by the time she got there. Now, this was, she was an old lady in them days. And she was huffing and puffing when she got there, but she knew what happened. When I hit, my lungs collapsed. All the air went out of them. She put her mouth over my mouth, and she blew my lungs up, and I started breathing again. She saved my life. And she told me a few things. And she never shared that with my mom and dad. Because my dad was a mean guy, and he used to beat me up once in a while. Anyway, she kept that from everybody, but she saved my life. These 2 people. Well, let's see. I used to visit with them whenever I could get there. And when my grandfather knew I was coming, he would be sitting in his chair in the living room, and he would have his Bibles out. There were several Bibles, from different denominations and versions of the book, but the King James is the one he preferred. And I would read to him from the book. Now, my grandfather quit school when he was just a little kid because he had to go to work. Back in the early 1900s is when this was. So he never went very far in school, and he became a truck driver. Let's see. I used to read to him from areas in this book where he didn't read. I have his Bible today, and I could see the spots in here where he read all the time. There was a few pages, and he read it all the time. It was important to him, and it was important to God, because he did it every day. I'm not that diligent, but he was, and I found this out. And me, now that I'm 70 years old, I remember what he told me back in them days, and all during my life, when I was disrespectful, and he was kind to me, my grandmother was kind to me, I remember what they did, and it means something to me today. Now, there's a verse in here that says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That might be in a psalm or something like that, or maybe a proverb. It's in this book. They did that. Now, during those years, all that stuff that I did wrong, because I went and walked on the wrong path. But now that I'm old, I won't depart from it. Because they did what God told them to do. And the blessings are manifested in me. That's why I can tell you that I'm happier than a pig in a slop bin. On the inside of me, you just wouldn't believe the godly joy that's there. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that's happening. I mean, like I said earlier, the crap still comes my way. I got pains. I got things going on. There's the stuff from the world, society. All the anxieties still come around. But I just scoff at it. I know I'm going to die. I don't know exactly how I'm going to die. It might be from my heart, because there's heart problems in my family, and I got a screwed up heart going on once in a while. But I know I'm going to die. But to me, death will be just seconds, it will seem like, and it's resurrection time. Because when you die, you have no recollection of time. It's instant. Boom. Just like that. Resurrection time. It's quick. Now, there's a verse in here. To be absent from the from the body, is to be present with the Lord. They think that instantaneous, go up there to be with the Lord when you die. It's not what happens, man. As soon as you die, it's quick. You don't know. It could be 1 billion years, but you won't know it. It's resurrection time. Well, here I am just rambling on here. But it's truth. My grandparents. Honor your mother and father, even if they're not good to you. You got to honor your mom and dad. That's what God tells you to do. Be kind to your neighbors. I got to knock this off, but I'm coming right